right, hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to the BAMA Elite Podcast here on Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page. Of course, be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you are not a subscriber. If you are one of our loyal subscribers, be sure to hit that notification bell so you can be notified when we drop content on our YouTube channel. This is a new podcast that we have basically been in the process of dropping and releasing, and we are officially releasing it today. Of course, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama. We have Stephen M. Smith, the lead reporter for Touchdown Alabama, and also Pat Dodd, one of our other reporter, our breaking news reporter here at touchdownalabama.com. How's it going, guys?
It's going good, man. Yeah, it's finally good to, we've been talking about setting this up for a while now. I think, since we all started working together, we've all kind of wanted to do something together to give you, our fan base something a little more unique, combine all our strengths and expertise. So, it's been a long time coming. I'm glad we finally have the opportunity.
Guys, I'm pumped. I mean, I am hyped up right now. We're in football, made it through an entire offseason where you didn't quite know what the weather would look like, who messed over Mother Nature again with the sun, the rain, the wind, and things of that nature. But we made it to football. We're 2 days until the Crimson Tide takes on Utah State. Bryant-Denny, not the typical neutral site game, but you get to have it at home in the LED lighting feature at night. The students should be rowdy. The place should be rocking. It's back, and it's football.
Yeah, absolutely. Steven, I know you guys are excited to be there in person to cover the game, but we're going to cover a lot of different topics here today. First off, the depth chart getting released earlier this week. A couple of surprises, specifically when you take a look at some freshmen getting the opportunity to start. What are you guys' thoughts about some of the things that you saw, and what are some surprises that really caught your eye?
Well, I think that what's obvious is the three freshmen who are booked in the first group, right? Kobe Prentice, Jaheim Otis, and Terrion Arnold all set to make their first starts against Utah State this Saturday. And, I know Justin can speak to it. There were some rumblings with the recruiting trail not maybe fizzling out here and coming to an end for Alabama, but that's obviously not the case. Alabama's got three freshmen now in the starting lineup.
I think the thing that stood out to me, guys, was, and along with the freshmen, because I'm excited to see Otis, Arnold, and Kobe Prentice get out there, but at the Mike linebacker position behind Henry To'o, come on down the man-child avenger, freak of nature, Kendrick Blackshire, behind Henry T. And I remember Will Anderson spoke on this week that, Blackshire has picked up more of that playbook in his second season. We all look at him as just this physically imposing athlete, and that he is, but just seeing him pick up that playbook from a Mike linebacker perspective, because I'm going to be real, I thought he was going to be the weak side backer, and Deontay Lawson, another guy that Justin spent a lot of time around from Mobile, I thought Deontay Lawson was going to be the Mike linebacker, but seeing that it's flipped and that it's Lawson weak side and Kendrick Blackshire in the middle behind Henry T., it just shows you that Blackshire, more than just an athletic freak, he can mentally pick up that playbook.
Yeah, I definitely see some of those characteristics when you take a look at Blackshire. Like you said, if you take a look at this kid, especially coming out of high school, oddly, he actually looks a little bit smaller at Alabama compared to some of those Hook-like photos he took in high school. But I think some of the things that really surprised me were the two freshmen. I think it's really interesting that Jaheim Otis has made such a big transition, not only with his weight, but also with his play. Because to be honest, he's a guy that really surprised me, because I had an opportunity to actually watch him at the high school football level at Columbia High School for a game last fall. And to be honest, he didn't impress me, to be honest. He flashed in terms of his ability to make some plays with his arm movement and get into the backfield, but a lot of times he looked as if he was a bit tired and was standing around. So I was like, I don't know about this kid. I think he had, I was in my mind at that particular point in the game, I was thinking he has to reach down into himself once he gets to Alabama, possibly get some extra motivation and then take that next step. That's what I thought it would have to take for Jaheim Otis to get on the field as a freshman and looked as if he has made that next step, not only with his weight transition, but also with his game and his mentality. Because I'm pretty sure he did not go into University of Alabama's football practice lollygagging around, acting as if he was tired and not up to par in terms of his shape. So he really surprised me. I know a lot of people were even commenting like on some of our YouTube videos in the past saying they saw him play. There's a lot of times when he was basically standing around. I saw that myself. So it just goes to show him and a guy who I saw recently, Keon Keeley, who do not have the best games. When you go out to see them, you cannot judge these kids off of one game, off of one showing. It's a lot that goes into their development. So I was really surprised by Jaheim Otis's transition, not only on the field and not only in the weight room.
Yeah, and I really think both Kendrick Blackshear and Jaheim Otis kind of cement what it is to when Nick Saban talks about embracing the Alabama culture, embracing the process here. I think they're both a testament to that, because let's not be in terms of Otis, let's not beat around the bush here. He was a big kid coming in. He was 300 plus, and I don't remember, he lost like 60 something pounds since he actually joined Alabama, and now he's in a position to play. And we've heard from the players, the other defenders saying, yeah, he came in, he didn't whine, he didn't moan, he came in and he worked. He knew what he had to do. He shared it on social media, all the updates of his weight loss, and now he's in a position to be an impact player so young. And when you look at the depth chart, he's not a second stringer. It's DJ Dale or Jaheim Otis. He's pushing for some serious playing time in there. And in terms of Kendrick Blackshear, I would say, even though he's in the second string, he's right there. He's right there to make the step up and to get on the field. And like Steven brought up, playing in that Mike role, which means he's the signal caller. So it means he's fully understanding and grasping the playbook in his second year here with the program. And I think it's also a testament to him that he embraced playing special teams last year. He was a hard hitter on the kickoff game, I believe he played. So I think that both of those things go a long way with somebody like Nick Saban to come in and just, embrace the weight loss program, and while also coming in being enthusiastic about playing on special teams.
I think for me, guys, and this shouts out Justin a whole lot, because Jay, you've seen a lot of these kids on the recruiting trail. Primarily, you did an in-depth study, Justin, on the 2020 class. And when you talk about all those dudes that came defensively in that group, primarily along the defensive run, the Chris Braswells, the Will Andersons, the Quandarius Robinsons that came in that 2020 group, Tim Smith and Jamil Burroughs came in that group also. And Tim Smith comes in, the 5-star from Florida. A lot of people thought he would be the next elite nose tackle. And then Jamil Burroughs comes in, the 4-star from Georgia. They both made impacts as freshmen on a national championship team, but now both will get the chance to have even more of a role, even more of an impactful role. Tim Smith going from nose tackle to defensive end. I didn't see that coming. And this guy, 6'4", 304, long arms, very big wingspan. We're going to get to see his burst, his explosiveness, his get off, his pass rush moves. How much can Tim Smith hit home on the quarterback? Because a lot of fans were excited when he came in. Can Tim Smith get home? And then Jamil Burroughs, who had a really good spring, a really good fall camp. Of course, Saban wants to see a bit more consistency from him. Once he gets in the games, how quickly can he hit home? So that 2020 class, when you look at Jamil Burroughs and Tim Smith getting opportunities, just in this 2020 class that you spent a great deal of covering, a lot more guys from that class are starting to get their time now.
Yeah, most definitely. And speaking of Smith, going back to him coming out of high school, even Jamil Burroughs, I think one of the things that really stand out about both of those guys or any other interior defensive lineman, when those guys have a quick burst off the line of scrimmage, I think that is what usually makes them a little bit different from the others. Of course, everybody who's going to be a D1 defensive tackle prospect, interior defensive line prospect is going to have that size, 6'3", 6'4", close to 300 pounds. They are going to fit the profile. They are going to look the part. But when you have that explosiveness off the snap of the football, I think that is what separates a lot of top D1 talent. And going back to both of those guys showed flashes of that. Even Jamil Burroughs showed a even at the high school football level, showed a deep bag of rush moves. So I was really impressed with both of those guys coming out of high school. Tim Smith, out of Florida, and Jamil Burrows out of Georgia. And that class finally getting to step up as a whole, just looking at that entire class. Of course, Chris Broswell, Bryce Young, Will Anderson, Malachi Moore, Malachi Moore, Brian Branch. A large group of that class is going to play a huge role in this upcoming season for the Crimson Tide.
Pat, I mean, before we even get into Utah State, I mean, Pat, this offensive line, I mean, I guess the only two things we can look at, Pat, for the offensive line, you're thinking Javion Cohan at that left guard spot. Instead, it's Kendall Randolph. And Cohan could get that spot back. This is probably Nick Saban looking at Randolph going, hey, man, you've been here a long time. You've been here a while. You've given us your stick-to-itiveness, so we want to honor you by giving you this shot here to start against Utah State. And then Darian Dalcourt over Seth McLaughlin at center. A lot of Bama fans are going, what the heck? But still, you look at Dalcourt, he does bring some value, but he also knows, you got to have the snaps correctly up to Bryce Young. But, I mean, Pat, how you feeling right now, man? You got Eric Wolford in here coaching these guys big time, strong fit. And this line has finally started to get into that identity of we're going to knock some people around this year. I mean, Pat, how you feel about this line, dude? I mean, you are about 6'6" yourself. So how you feel about this line, Pat?
Well, I mean, we'll see about if this line has the nasty streak that we keep hearing about, because we're yet to see them play a game yet. And I know even going into last year, there were questions about the offensive line, and those questions were valid because they were very inconsistent last season. Right now, this is honestly, to me, it's all talk until they prove it. But the talk is very positive. Nick Saban saying they're adopting that kind of rugged mentality that Eric Wolford's bringing over from Kentucky. So, as long as if Randolph is a good fit in there, then that's great. I know Cohen missed some time in the summer to address his mental health, which is completely understandable in these times. So maybe that got him behind the 8 ball a little bit or whatever. But, if Javion Cohen started almost every game last season, I believe, or every game. So, having him on the bench is pretty valuable there. And, in terms of Darian Dalcourt, if he can stay healthy, I didn't think he was that bad last year, to be honest. But, like Seth McLaughlin's right there to pick up any sort of slack on the bench. So I think Alabama's offensive line, we'll see what the first group can do here. But I think they have options off the bench as well, which is pretty important.
Absolutely. So now, fellas, we look at Utah State this weekend. Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, which you got the alcohol sales now. According to the Tuscaloosa City Council, the alcohol is being sold there in Bryant-Denny, so hopefully that increases the attendance. Maybe, maybe not. We shall see. But
I have a feeling, real quick, that's going to get some extra butts in the seats.
Hey, Pat, nothing like a little liquid courage to have Nick Saban go, there's an extra, 300 people in here.
Yeah, who doesn't want to pay a $13 Bud Light?
There you go. But we look at Utah State here, and like we mentioned earlier in the show, usually Alabama will be playing a Wisconsin or a Virginia Tech or a Clemson, a Michigan, just a big marquee opponent in a neutral site game to kick off the year. But Coach Saban mentioned yesterday that, this is what Alabama was trying to get to, scheduling those home and homes to where you get a chance to play and open the season in your venue, in your arena, in your area. So to open this thing up here against Utah State, what does Alabama gain, Pat, from this game? Because normally when you look at Utah State, you go, this is going to be an easy win. Bama's going to blow through these guys, roll through these guys. But in actuality, in your opinion, what does Alabama gain from playing Utah State in this matchup?
Well, experience for one, like we just mentioned. They have three freshmen and a couple other newcomers who are going to be making their first start this weekend. And, sometimes that stage can be a little bit overwhelming at times, but, having a team like Utah State and, all respect to Utah State, they won 11 games last year. This isn't their typical, what everyone likes to call the pushover game in terms of the non-Power 5, but it's still, there's going to be a talent discrepancy between the two. But, I think it's going to be some valuable experience and a good test to see, if some of these players are going to, come in lackadaisical, just looking at the opponent and just going through the motions. But I think it's probably a good thing that some of these young guys are getting their first start inside Bryant-Denny Stadium, so they do experience that atmosphere right off the bat.
What's your thoughts on that, Justin, over there?
Yeah, I definitely feel it is a good opportunity for those young guys, but I also think it's a great opportunity for Bryce Young to get comfortable with this new wide receiving core. We know some of the questions surrounding that group heading into this season. I know there's a lot of excitement around it, especially when you saw a freshman basically climb through the ranks pretty quickly. I know a lot of people are expecting some exciting plays from the speedy freshman out of Clear High School and Kobe Prentice. So I think it's all about getting a rhythm between Bryce Young and the wide receivers, getting a rhythm in the run game, because Utah State seemed to struggle against that when they played against Connecticut last week. So I think it is a great opportunity for Bill O'Brien to get an early rhythm with this offense in general. The defense can come out and make a statement with a team like Utah State. Like you guys said, it is a difference in talent, and with that difference in talent and with the expectations for Alabama's defense, I think the expectations for this game is going to be really high. It wouldn't surprise me if people expected the Crimson Tide to possibly shut out Utah State or come very close to it if you have the defense that you say you think that they have.
Real quick, did you see this coming from Kobe Prentice? Because I know you're so plugged in on the recruiting trail and whatnot for everything Alabama. So I was wondering, was Kobe Prentice someone who you consider to be someone who can come in and make an immediate impact like this?
Not entirely. I wouldn't even lie and say I totally predicted this. No, I did not predict it. We all knew he had speed, 4.3 speed. He ran a 4.340 when he came to Alabama, when he earned it off from the Crimson Tide last summer. But I was definitely not expecting him to come in and just ball out like he has. I knew he was a great route runner, a guy with some decent hands. I think that is the biggest criticism I had of his game, just watching him when Calera took on Helena last year, and also watching him at the Alabama Mississippi All-Star practice. He seemed to struggle catching the football consistently, but I knew that was something he could work on, continue to get better at. That is what it's all about. I know, especially with the quarterback position, but especially with a lot of young guys, this is about consistency. That is what Nick Saban talks about all the time. So it looks as if he was able to turn that around and be a consistently good pass catcher. So I am a bit surprised about him as well, but I know he is a speedy playmaker who can make some great plays down the field. I don't think he's much of a guy who can play in the air like a Jalen Waddle. I think he's more so of those wide receivers who can play more so on the ground. I don't think he's going to make too many fantastic 50-50 catches, but he's going to be able to create some separation with his route running and make some plays after the catch.
Yeah, and I have to imagine that here. Sorry to cut you off, Steve, but I have to imagine that he's probably filling a role here that was probably for someone like JoJo Earl, because JoJo Earl is going to be missing. Suffered a foot fracture partway through fall camp, and he's going to be out for a couple games here, and also Tyler Harrell coming in a little banged up, getting behind the 8 ball in terms of the playbook. He's listed as the second string X receiver right now behind Jermaine Burton. So until then, Kobe Prentice has a heck of an opportunity here to make an impression.
So for me, guys, the shock was in the defensive secondary, and that was Terrion Arnold getting the nod. And here's another guy, which is the reason why if you're not watching the process with Justin Smith, you're under a rock somewhere. This is another guy that Justin spent a lot of time with, going back to that 2021 class, Arnold from Tallahassee, Florida. When I watched Terrion's high school tape, I saw a lot of Eddie Jackson. And this dude, we knew he was highly intelligent coming in. We knew he was instinctive. We knew he had range. We knew he had the ability to play the lower third of the field, all of these things, but he was flipped to corner upon getting in here. And the fact that you pass up a Kyrie Jackson to where, when Nick Saban recruits JUCO guys, he doesn't recruit those guys to sit those guys. He plays those guys. The fact that you pass up Kyrie Jackson and Eli Ricks, who had a good career at LSU prior to some injuries, and so he comes over to Alabama, dealing with recovering from a shoulder and some back issues, missed some time in practice in fall camp. For Terrion to pass up both of those guys and get the first look at corner opposite Kool-Aid McKinstry, that tells you two things. Number one, the work ethic of Terrion Arnold, but then number two, what a great job Travaris Robinson has done as the cornerbacks coach. I mean, to coach this man up and get him in position to get the first look, albeit it's Utah State, but get that first look. What a job by Coach Travaris Robinson helping out Terrion Arnold.
Yeah, like you said about Terrion, Steven come out of high school, really athletic kid. Actually had an opportunity, although even as him and Kool-Aid McKinstry would not take advantage of that opportunity, but had an opportunity to play football and basketball. And I think that speaks to the level of athleticism that he possesses. And coming out of high school, he was just a dynamic playmaker on both sides of the football at John Paul II Catholic High School in Tallahassee. Had opportunity to watch him in action, although his competition was not the best in high school, so he basically out there dominating. But I think the thing that really stood out to me was his ability and his willingness to come down and hit somebody. So many defensive backs do not want to hit. I think it gets overlooked even at the college football level. So many of those defensive backs do not want to hit anybody. But Terrion Arnold is a guy who's willing to come down and make contact inside of the box. I think that is something that's really going to help him in the future, and I think it has helped him get on the field this early in his Alabama football career. So I think that was one of the biggest things that stood out to me outside of his athleticism, because we saw that athleticism, that ranginess. He's played majority of the time. He plays safety at John Paul II, making the transition to cornerback now. But his willingness to come down and make somebody feel him, I think that is the thing that really stood out to me just in the earlier part of his game and in his development.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note that this quarterback competition is not over. I know Arnold's getting the first look here against Utah State, but I mean, Alabama has 4 starting caliber corners on their hands, and I mean, if last year proved anything, depth at corner is so crucial, because by the time the national championship game rolled around, they had guys like Malachi Moore was injured all season, and Josh Jobe was out, Jalen Armour-Davis was out, so excuse me, but having depth at that position is so crucial, especially when you get into some of these big games where you face some high-powered offenses, which Alabama is going to face this year. So Alabama just having a bunch of talented options, I think, just bodes well for them this year.
So as we look even more into this matchup, guys, against Utah State, I mean, this is my thoughts. Does Alabama have to do does Alabama have to do a lot of passing here with Bryce Young? Or is this one game where if you're Coach Saban, you pull back out the game plan from Cincinnati in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl and just re-roll that plan back out there and saving a lot of this other stuff for Texas the following week and down the road, especially when you look at, Utah State gave up 245 yards rushing. So do you pull the Cincinnati plan back out, though you do not have Brian Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jace McClellan are certainly capable? Or do you just go, you know what, Bill O'Brien, let's throw Bryce around, let's throw Jalen Milroe around? How do you play this if you were Nick Saban right now?
Look, if I'm Nick Saban, I think we need to crack some skulls here, because this is what I'll say. Utah State, look, for anyone who didn't catch the Week 0 matchup, the primetime Week 0 matchup between Utah State and UConn, University of Connecticut, for those who don't know, my home state. I grew up going to the Rent, which was deemed the loudest stadium by Heisman Trophy winner Robert Griffin III, the loudest in all of college football that he's ever played in. Heisman Trophy winner, right? And since then, since those comments, they've been on a little bit of a slide. They've been in 2 conferences. They are now independent. And UConn, my great home state, the great UConn Huskies, rushed for 245 yards against Utah State. If I'm Utah State, that's horrible. That is downright horrible. You can't. That's you. I mean, come on, guys. This is UConn. I'm proud to say I'm from Connecticut, but goodness, 245 yards against this team full of 2-stars, and just, whoo. If I'm Nick Saban and I'm seeing that, we're going 2 tight ends. We're testing out this offensive line. We're cracking skulls, man.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be on the opposite side of that, Pat. I know I think it'll be a good showing to get the football to some of those talented running backs Alabama has, because they're deep. Just looking at that depth chart, so much talent at the running back position. But I really want to see what Bryce can do with this new wide receiver corps. Going back to the national championship game, I think that left a bad taste in Alabama's offense's mouth, because going back and just looking at that game, Bryce Young was getting pressure, of course, because Georgia had one of the one of the best defenses that we have seen in recent history in college football, but those wide receivers could not get open. I think that was one of the biggest difference between the SEC championship game and the national championship game. Georgia could not keep up with Jamison Williams, and the separation that those wide receivers were able to create. The Crimson Tide's offense needs to create some separation with these new wide receivers, get some chemistry built between them and Bryce Young. So I definitely think Alabama wants to get the passing game back rolling, especially when you have Bryce Young back in there in preparation for the Texas game. But I do feel that the run game will be featured more. But I can't say I do feel, because what did we see last season from Bill O'Brien? So I think that is the question about Bill O'Brien. Will the run game be even featured more this upcoming season? We expect it to be, because you have a stable of running backs, but I think that still is a question, and it remains to be seen how often they will run the ball.
You see, folks, you can't get this anywhere else. Patrick is giving his own history of Connecticut, and Justin is on a whole opposite end than what Pat's on right now. You can't get this anywhere else. But Pat, you're about to say something.
Listen, a basketball school ran for 240 yards on you. Utah State won 11 games last year, and they got gashed. It's going to happen again. That's all I'll say.
And that is the message according to my man P Money over here, Patrick Dow. But guys, so you're looking at here as we're getting some thoughts actually in the chat line here live on the Bama Elite. And one of the biggest questions that a lot of fans have, Jalen Milroe, sophomore quarterback, native Texan, had really good offseason, gained even more weight, looks even bigger, faster, stronger, was power cleaning 335 pounds this offseason like it was paperweight. Looks like a linebacker out there playing quarterback. The question is, how much more will he be able to operate in this offense? We know Bryce Young is a starter, point blank, period. But in games where Alabama has a lead or has a big lead, how often will we see Bill O'Brien look at Jalen Milroe and go, son, we have a package for you, absolutely, but we want to test your arm and see what this future could be, because you're not going to have Bryce Young forever. He has a big year this season. This guy could be the number one overall pick in the 2023 draft. How often could we see Jalen Milroe's arm get tested in this upcoming season?
I mean, I think we'll definitely see it this Saturday. I know Nick Saban is not going to want to admit it, but I would bet a decent amount of money that we're going to see Jalen Milroe throw the football this weekend in some capacity. I don't know if this guy is going to be getting, 12, 15 passes per game, but it'll be good to see how much more he'll be able to progress throwing the football. Because I know we all saw from the spring game his progression in the pass game, especially pushing the ball downfield. I know his completion percentage wasn't quite there if you just look at the stats, but if you really look at some of the plays he was able to make with with the receivers, I think it's encouraging. And now having the full fall camp under his belt, I think it's going to be interesting to see how much even more he's developed. But, in terms of, in terms of the packages, I think Alabama would actually be hesitant to use a Jalen Milroe Wildcat package too often, because he's the second string quarterback. And if he was to get hurt in one of these packages, the second string quarterback would be true freshman Ty Simpson. And I know Ty Simpson is a talented player, but how comfortable is Alabama with him having that safety blanket? So I think we'll see Milroe. I don't know if we'll see Milroe extremely often this season unless Alabama's up big, but knowing this team and how hyped this team is, that could actually be more often than we think.
Yeah, I agree with you, Pat. I don't think it would be a package highly used with Jalen Milroe. Just going back in history, and when the Crimson Tide had Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa, we did saw a package for Jalen Hurts, but that package was rarely used. It did not get used a lot. It seems as if they tried different things, but it was not a consistent part of their offensive attack. So I don't know if a package will be installed, but in terms of Jalen Milroe in his development, I think the thing that I would look forward to watching is him, like you said, going through his progressions, being more patient in the pocket, because when we did see him last year, we saw his running ability. It seemed as if he was just going on the football field, to run the football. So we know he can run the football. He's a talented runner, a talented athlete. So we need to see what he can do with his arm. And going back to the spring game, we saw some good and we saw some bad. Like you said, his completion percentage was a bit off. I saw a couple of passes. I wasn't sure who he was throwing the football to. I remember the Christian Story pick. It looked as if Story was playing outfield for the Yankees or something, because he basically just fielded the football and it came right into his hands. So I'm just looking forward to seeing him develop as a passing quarterback. We know he can run. We know he can run. We know he is athletic. He has a huge arm, a nice, strong arm. I think we have seen flashes of that at practice and at games. We've seen him show some decent accuracy as well. I'm going back to last season. I think he was able to throw a touchdown. Was it to Javon Baker? I forget, but I think he was able to throw a touchdown last season. And going back to the spring game, he had a couple of good plays. So we saw some good and we saw some bad. But I want to see his progression as a passing quarterback, because we all know he's athletic. He can make some fantastic runs with his size and with his build. He may be able to truck some defenders in the future, but we'll see what happens in terms of him growing as a passing quarterback.
Justin, you're right. That game was the Southern Miss game where he threw a touchdown to Javon Baker that was of 24 yards right there. So the thing for me is, this is the thing for me. Again, starting off with Utah State, there's a lot of hype surrounding this defense. Pat mentioned, I want to see it on the field. Hype is good, talk is fun, but I want to see it on the field. And with every defense for Alabama, they're always compared to the 2011 defense that gave up just 8.2 points per game the whole season, didn't allow LSU to cross midfield, but only once in that national championship game. And then the 2016 defense that was just scoring more than the offense was. Everybody gets compared to those two groups, primarily in the Saban era. You look at this defense, all the players have talked high about it. I kind of want to see, how quickly does it start forcing those turnovers? How quickly does it start racking up those sags? How quickly does it start honing in on all the talk? Because the veterans are there. The playmakers are there. This is the first time in the Pete Golding era where everything's in play for Coach Golding. Pat, in your opinion, start off with you first, Pat. How quickly can we see this Bama defense prove true on all the conversation we've heard this offseason?
Well, if the conversation was about being all-time great, I think we better cut that out, because I think when you start digging back to the Alabama defenses of the past, the circumstances are so different in terms of the offense and the rules and the ability to move the ball downfield, RPOs and whatnot. So I think that's unrealistic. But I will say, I think this defense should get off to a fast start for what the standard is in today's game. So, because when you look at Alabama has so much experience back on that side of the football. And even the young players like Kool-Aid McKinstry, he played a lot last year. And someone like Kyrie Jackson has played a lot. Eli Ricks has played a lot of football. Malachi Moore, Brian Branch, Jordan Battle, Henry To'oTo'o, Byron Young. The entire defense has so many games under its belt that if they're in tune, in line with the system with some of their newer players, they can get off to a very fast start and prove to be one of the best defenses in the country.
Yeah, I think a lot has to come to the forefront for this defense, like you said, to prove that they are indeed what people have been talking about. Because like you said, right now it's all talk, it's all hype. This is supposed to be a great defense. Like you said, Pete Golding is supposed to have everything that he needs to have a productive defense. You have one of the best player on the defensive side of football in college football in Will Anderson. Of course, he's going to consistently get after the quarterback. Some teams will adjust to him, as we know, probably throw a double team his way. But you have Dallas Turner coming off the other side. So you have a veteran interior defensive line. We take a look at Tim Smith. Although he did not play a ton, I think last season, he has some decent experience just based on what games that he has played. Also taking a look at DJ Dale, who has more experience than him, so he has that experience as a nose tackle. Of course, you have Jaheim Otis. Of course, he's a freshman, but you do have DJ Dale in that position alongside him. That talented deep secondary. I know you had Terry Arnold step up and become a starting cornerback, but you also have some experience there. Taking a look at Kyrie Jackson, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and also Eli Ricks. To be honest, I'm really excited to see how Eli Ricks transitions into Alabama's defense because he's such a talented guy. I think he's one. If I had to, he's one of those guys. If I went into a lab and had to design a cornerback for today's game, I'm designing a guy who looks like Eli Ricks. Long, extremely long arms, length is off the charts in terms of his frame. A guy who can, like Nick Saban says when we talked about him recently in a press conference, he can use those long arms to make plays on the football in terms of catching interceptions, also knocking balls out of wide receivers' hands, also getting hands on the wide receiver off the line of scrimmage really easily with that length. So I'm really excited to see what Ricks can do. And he's a guy who's a threat to take any interception back for a pick six. So I'm excited to see how he's transitioned to Alabama's defense. But I think this, like you said, the defense is deep, but they have to prove it. I don't know. I can't say when. I don't know if Utah State will be what people say they definitely have proven since they stopped Utah State Aggies. So this is the best defense ever. I don't think we're going to see that. Maybe not even against Texas. All depends on how Texas comes out with possibly a freshman quarterback. So we'll see what happens on what point of the season. I don't think it'll be early on in terms of Utah State and Texas, but they could be on the verge. I think we can start the conversation if they have two great performances against Utah State and Texas. We can start to say, hey, this defense may be who they say they were, but I don't think it's going to be proven early on.
Yeah, we can't be crowning these guys too early, you know?
Well, guys, real quick right here, for all of you guys out there listening to the Bama Elite, all Bama fans and college football fans out there, when you're not listening to the Bama Elite podcast, tune into the Big Game College Football Podcast Network and audio stream to hear the best college football coverage in the South. So when you're not checking out the Bama Elite with your guys, Justin Smith, Patrick P. Money Dowd, and yours truly, Stephen M. Smith, then head on over to the Big Game College Football Podcast Network and audio stream to hear the best college football coverage in the South. Well, fellas, we can now turn our attention to prediction time. Prediction time here for Bama and Utah State here, wrapping this thing up. I know. This is a very popular prediction. Bama a little, Bama a lot, Utah State a little, and that's how people would like to say it right there. But to start this thing off with Justin, if you had to give a score prediction to this thing, Justin, what would it be, and who would be your offensive and defensive MVP of the game?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of predictions, but if I had to predict a score off the top of my head here, coming off the dome, probably 52 to. I give Utah State 10. They probably won't score that, but I think it'll be a game in that range. I think the Crimson Tide will take control of this game. Probably, to be honest, I'm interested in seeing how they come out because the first game is always interesting. You remember the Alabama Duke game? I think a couple of years ago. I think it was like 3-0 and after the first.
Hold on, Justin. But that was the game where Najee was suspended, Devontae Smith was suspended, half the team got suspended.
Yeah.
Stephen, basketball schools, they can't be messing around with basketball schools.
Okay, fair point. And Jerome Ford dip on the ball. Fair point.
Yeah. So I'm interested in seeing how fast they come out on firing on all cylinders. So we'll see how quickly things get going for the Crimson Tide. And I think that will determine how long Bryce Young and the rest of the starters play. I actually expect them to play a little longer, unless it's just a disaster and Alabama just comes out and scores 35 points in the first quarter. I don't think they would be in that long. But if it's one of those games that just is developing and progressing at a normal rate, when you take a look at Alabama and Utah State, I expect them to play a little bit longer than what many people may expect. Probably a couple of drives in the third quarter, possibly most of the third quarter, at least half of it, I would expect.
I gotta ask, did you look at the spread before the game? You said 52-10. The spread's 41.5. And if I'm doing my math correctly, you said exactly 42 points. So that's where my mind goes when I consider score predictions. 41.5 is a ton of points. That's a ton of points. but they're going to cover. I think Alabama will cover that spread. Yeah, I think Utah State made, they won 11 games last year. Keep bringing it up, but man, UConn. So I think Alabama is going to cover that 41.5, in my opinion.
So now it's on me here. I got it 48-3. I got it 48-3 in favor of Alabama. Utah State will get a field goal middle fourth quarter. So they'll get a field goal middle fourth quarter, 48-3. If I had to go with the defensive MVP, I'm going to go Dallas Turner. I think Dallas Turner has a monster game. He'll be the defensive MVP. Offensive MVP, I'm going to shock some people. It's Trayshawn Holden time, baby. Trey Day. So Trayshawn Holden will be the offensive MVP. I think Trayshawn Holden will get 3 touchdowns in this game. I think he'll get 3. And I think he'll show that finally the time has come for him. He's worked his tail off. So offensive MVP, Trayshawn Holden, defensive MVP, Dallas Turner.
Real quick, I did not give my MVPs. I'm going to go Jahmyr Gibbs, the transfer running back from Georgia Tech. And I will also go I like that Dallas Turner pick, Steven. I do. So I think I'm going to join you with Dallas Turner. I'm excited. These edges, listen, we didn't talk about Will Anderson and Dallas Turner that much, and I forgot to mention them earlier when I talked about Alabama bringing its experience back. They're going to be an absolute nightmare for teams this year to block on the edges. So yeah. I think Will is going to attract so much attention. I think Dallas Turner is poised to have a huge season this year. So he's going to be my MVP for this game.
You got to throw in my prediction. I think I'm not even going to go with Gibbs. I wasn't going with Gibbs since Pat got him. I'm not going to go with Gibbs. I'm going to go with the safe pick, Bryce Young. Bryce Young, the Heisman Trophy winner, is coming.
Come on, Jay. Come on.
I wanted to go with Gibbs, but I think Bryce Young will show why he is possibly is going to be a Heisman Trophy winner again. I think he is going to be in the conversation. I think a great year. I think possibly a better year than last year probably will help him win it, although I think the odds are definitely against him, but I think he will come out and be the offensive player of the game. And on defensive side of football, I'm not even going to go with the surprise pick. Will Anderson is going to once again show why he is the most dominant.
2 favorites.
I think the favorite, safest bets. They show why they are 2 of the best players in college football.
This is what Justin's doing. Justin's doing when it comes down to the NFL draft. Get the safest pick on the board. That's what Justin's doing. Get the safest pick on the board. Well, folks, this is the BAMA Elite Touchdown Alabama magazine with Justin Smith, lead scouting and recruiting analyst for TDA. Patrick P. Money Dowd, breaking news reporter for TDA. And I'm yours truly, Stephen M. Smith, senior reporter for Touchdown Alabama magazine. Appreciate you guys for checking us out on today. We are 2 days away from Bama, Utah State. Saturday, Bryant-Denny Stadium. SEC Network will have the call. 6:30 p.m. Central Time. We get the LED lighting show. And until next time, folks, this has been the Bama Elite.